God's Son, Jesus, was in charge of both life and death, the one who was aware that he was going to bring Lazarus back to life. He continued to cry. Why? Not because he was uncontrollable, not because he felt overwhelmed in the sense that weakness is typically thought of. He felt, therefore he wept. He let his heart react as he stood in the face of loss, anguish, and human misery. This alters everything, because Jesus would not have shed tears if they were indeed a sign of weakness. He would have remained detached, unaffected, and above the situation. However, he didn't. He entered other people's suffering. He took part in it. This implies that you shouldn't feel guilty about crying. Jesus himself articulated them, and not just once, but at several points in his life. When he saw Jerusalem in the midst of pain, when he bore the burden of humanity. There's power in letting your heart feel without hardening it. A strength is in not shutting down in order to look powerful. Jesus demonstrates that emotionlessness is not a sign of true power. It is the capacity to be open in a damaged world, even when Therefore, you are not deviating from the image of Christ when you cry easily. You are reflecting that in certain ways. And that takes us to a more profound level. Because what does it say about the state of your heart before God if your tears are a reflection of a feeling heart? Chapter 4. Number 3. Spiritual sensitivity is indicated by a soft heart. Thirdly, spiritual sensitivity is indicated by a gentle heart. And perhaps that's where the true distinction starts. Your heart's capacity to feel, not how frequently you cry. Because a hardened heart is not celebrated in the Bible. It repeatedly cautions against it. It demonstrates that we stray from God's voice when our hearts become numb, resistant, or closed off. Your heart still reacts when you bite it. It continues to react. It still has a strong feeling. You don't realize how important that is. Some people are able to experience pain without feeling anything. People who are heartless and unaltered. Those who witness suffering and remain indifferent. The Bible doesn't refer to that. Power. That is referred to as hardness. And because it no longer reacts to what is good, right, or true, a hardened heart finds it difficult to acknowledge God's presence. God declares, "I will give you a new heart, and a new spirit I will put within you," in Ezekiel 36:26. "I'll take the stone-like heart out of your body and replace it with a fleshly heart." Feels, reacts, and is alive. Therefore, it could not be weakness at all if you find yourself crying easily when something simple touches you, when kindness moves you, or when pain profoundly impacts you. It might be proof that your heart is still tender, alert, and aware of important things. Indeed, that type of heart might occasionally seem weighty. It may make you more sensitive to suffering, more impacted by words, and more susceptible to overwhelm. However, it also indicates that you are more susceptible to conviction, more compassionate, and more conscious of God's presence. A heart that is gentle is not weak. It is a heart that is responsive and has not been shut down by the world. Perhaps your tears are more than just an emotional response if your heart is still so open. Perhaps they are more than just words. Chapter 5. Number 4. You and God can communicate through tears. Fourth, you can communicate with God through tears. Because sometimes it's impossible to find the right words. You make an effort to pray, but nothing comes to mind. Your ideas seem disorganized. You sound feeble, and tears are all that's left. And during those times, you could feel as though you're not doing it correctly, that you're failing at prayer, or that you don't know what to say. However, the Bible makes no mention of the requirement that prayers be spoken flawlessly or with clarity. Actually, it demonstrates that God comprehends what humans are unable to express. Beyond words, He listens. Likewise, the Spirit helps us in our weakness, states Romans 8:26, because we are unsure of what we should pray for. However, the Spirit himself begs on our behalf with moans too profound for words. This implies that God hears you, even if you are unable to speak, even if all you have are silent sobs or tears. You can use your tears as a form of prayer. They transport what you put in your mouth. He doesn't hurry you through it. He's holding it. Take a moment to consider that. A God so perceptive that he sees every tear, not a few, not the crucial ones, every one of them. The silent tears you conceal, those that drop late at night, the ones you swiftly remove to prevent inquiries. He cannot see any of those. And perhaps that alters something within you. Because if God doesn't ignore your tears, then why have you been instructed to? Scripture indicates that God responds to emotional depth with compassion. So why have you been led to feel like it's a weakness? You are not crumbling because you are crying. They might indicate that despite suffering, your heart is still alive, still able to feel, and still open to God's presence. God didn't only watch human feeling. Therefore, if he appreciates your tears this much, we must consider something even more potent. He went into it himself. Chapter 3. Jesus himself. Number 2. Wept. And that wasn't weakness. Secondly, Jesus' own tears weren't a sign of weakness. In the Bible, there is a single instance that is both straightforward and profound. Jesus grieved in just 2 words, no lengthy explanation or complex lesson. According to John 11:35, Jesus shed tears. That's all. Nevertheless, there is a depth to those 2 words that contradicts all the world says about strength, because this man was not like the others. This was God sees this in you if you cry readily. Despite your best efforts, it still comes out. A straightforward moment, a peaceful recollection, a gentle remark, or perhaps a cruel one, and all of a sudden, tears well up in your eyes. It's not always clear to those around you. Some turn away, some remain mute, and some say things like, "You're too sensitive." Alternatively, "You must be more powerful." So you start wondering, me? That's what I've experienced. Is there something wrong? With the pressure in this world to appear unshaken, to carry everything without breaking, is said quietly. However, the Bible never instructs us to become numb or icy. It actually depicts something quite different. Your tears are not disregarded by God. He listens to them. According to Psalm 56:8, you keep track of all my sorrows. All of my tears have been gathered in your bottle. You've noted every one of them in your book. This implies that not a single tear is wasted, not a single one is invisible. Perhaps this is the fundamental question, rather than why you cry so easily. When you do, what type of heart does God see? Chapter 2. Number 1. God sees every tear you cry. First and foremost, God sees every tear you shed. Perhaps when our emotions get the better of us, we forget that. We believe that our tears end in emptiness. We believe that nobody really notices. However, the Bible presents a whole different narrative. Before God, every tear you shed has significance. He sees what others do not because you are weak or emotional. The burden of those tears. Sometimes a seemingly insignificant incident causes you to cry, but in reality, it's years of quiet difficulties, unacknowledged setbacks, and times when you manage to keep yourself together in the absence of others. God is aware of that. He sees more than just the tear. He understands the backstory. Psalm 56:8 states, "Keep track of all my sorrows. You continue to gather all of my tears in your bottle. Every one of them is documented in your book." Poetic hyperbole is not what this is. It demonstrates how intimately involved God is in your suffering. He doesn't ignore it.